Alright boys, so you read the title. Today we are going over my Arcane Odyssey Smasher Pass, Conjurer Magic tier list. So let's get into the video. Alright, so let's go from the bottom to the top, starting with Wind, which doesn't really need an explanation. But in case you are living under a rock, Wind is probably the worst imbue magic possible right now, because of how major the nerfs were. Because instead of just nerfing the magic itself with the Wind Mage nerf, they decided to nerf the entire thing. So that is the reason why Wind has its own class section. It is that bad. What I will say is Wind is still usable. So if it wasn't the case that it was the worst Conjurer, I would have put it near Crystal and Ash. Like maybe I'm tied with Crystal, but for the memes I put Wind there, and yeah, that's why. It doesn't need much explanation. That's why. So Ash is in the D list. We're moving up. We're finally in D, and Ash is one of those magics that I'm just not too sure about. So, obviously, Ash is actually pretty good. It has a 1.25 size multiplier, a 0.95 speed multiplier, and just about a 0.925 bleed synergy, when the base magic only does 0.85. So, like, why would this be a bad thing? I am 90% sure it's because of something with Soaked, because people really like Sunken Sword, but from most people I've heard, they've said Ash Conj sucks. I'll update if I ever try Ash Conjurer. I'll comment down below. I'll eat my words, but for now, Ash Conjurer remains in D. Real quick, you're like halfway into the video. This is really quick, but please subscribe. This video, it's only been 2 minutes and it's taken me like an hour to edit this much into the video, so I would really appreciate it if you subscribe. I'm going to try to put this much effort into other videos as well, so please subscribe. Thank you so much. Enjoy the video. Alright, now that we got Ash out of the way, let's move on to Crystal, which the reason I put Crystal so low, despite its damage being good and it having a bleed synergy, really good damage, good size, is its speed. That thing's speed is unmanageable. Now, yes, I have ran Crystal Conjurer, and yes, it was a long time ago, but in my opinion, Crystal Conjurer is still so bad. It has a size affinity of 1.15, speed affinity of 0.875, and its damage affinity is 1.1, and it has 5 seconds of bleeding and 10 seconds of crystallized, and no matter what, that on the third hit, damage being increased by like 30% is just stupid. So if it weren't for damage being increased and a bleed synergy, Crystal would have been the worst thing on this thing, but that's why it isn't that bad, and it is on D. So now we're into the only C tier, which is Magma, which truthfully, I think this could have been Crystal, but Magma has a 1.2 size multiplier, 0.85 speed, 1.1 base damage, so like just on imbue, and it has a 10% bleed synergy and 10 seconds of melting. Melting is a very strong, very strong DOT, so that's why I would like to say it is above Crystal, because Crystal, you just gotta hit a lot to try to proc that. And Magma's speed issue is easily fixable with the stat that solves a lot of these builds being bad, attack speed and sometimes attack size. So with that said, that is why I think Magma is in C. Now, real quick, just to add on before we move on to the B tier, very easy way to make Magma Conjurer stupidly good, same with Crystal, is dense great weapons and a lot of attack speed, size, not speed. Doughy. So let's get on to Glass. So Glass is actually pretty short because there's not much explaining to do. It's just mediocre. It has 1.1 size on imbue, 1x speed on imbue, 0.975 damage multiplier, and then it has bleeding, so it's like 1.4 4 is what the wiki says. I don't buy that, but it might be. And then it's bleeding. It just has bleeding tier 2. That's about it. It gets bleeding tier 2, which is 5 extra ticks onto bleed. So that's glass. Yeah, pretty easy. Alright, so next up is metal, and the reason metal is only in B tier is because Earth exists, and obviously we'll be hearing from Earth later. So let's start off with metal's 1.2x size multiplier, and it has a 0.775 speed multiplier, so like just about slower than my grandmother, who has dementia. Hi, Mom. 1.1 times damage multiplier plus bleeding is a 1.6, and it has tier 2 bleeding, which is 5 ticks, which isn't really worth it. The only thing that it's hard to do is when you get hit by an attack, it's kind of hard to run away, but that's about it for metal. It's alright. Alright, so it's wooding time. So, wood jumps right in with immediate stat advantages over metal in terms of like stat efficiency, with having 1.2 size, so equal size to our previous contestant, 0.9x speed multiplier, just absurd compared to what metal had, and a 1.025 damage base buff. You want to know what metal had? A 1.125. And plus bleeding, it is a 1.537, and wood also has bleeding tier 2. Alright, so let's get on to the next and final magic in the B tier, Plasma. Plasma has a 1x size multiplier, 1.5x imbue speed multiplier. Remember, we're going off of imbues when I make a mage video, then we'll be going off of raw stats. A 0.935 damage base multiplier, and 0.85 plus 10% bleed synergy, which is a scorch, which would round it out to just about a 1.25 damage multiplier. And it has 3 seconds of scorching. Plasma is a very cool looking magic, and a lot of people think it's shit, but in reality it's not. It's just pretty much just metal, but just not a DOT. I'll explain that more in a mage video, but yeah, that's about it for Plasma. I'll see you in the A tier. We're finally in the A tier, and you know what that means? We can talk about stupidly broken magics. Well, not stupidly broken. A tier is all really good magics, and we can finally talk about it. Earth. I mentioned Earth a little bit ago. Let's talk about Earth. Earth has a 1.3x size, a 0.8x speed, so faster than metal for a lot more size. It has 1.15 base damage compared to metal's 1.125 base damage. Earth has a total of 1.44 total damage when metal had that 1.6. It has 5 seconds of bleeding, tier 1 bleeding, not tier 2, so it's still different than metal, but I'd say it's the same thing, but just more size. So that is why Earth made the cut to A tier. Alright, now we can talk about Japan, not Japan, Explosion Magic. Explosion Magic has a size of 1.3, a speed of 0.875 multiplier, and a damage multiplier of 1.05 on the base. The bleeding synergy outs it to be about 1.31 damage multiplier. It has 5 seconds of bleeding, about usual. It's a pretty good conjurer, definitely not the best, but that is why it made it to A tier. Alright, so next up on the list is Poison. Now hear me out. Some of you people be shitting on Poison a little bit too much. Poison is actually insane. Poison Conj has some absurd stuff. First off, it has a 1.15 size multiplier. That is pretty good. 1 time speed multiplier. Its imbue damage,
pretty low. It's a 0.9. You might be saying, well, that's actually kind of high. Well, yeah, but wait till I tell you this. Has a 0.8x, 0.8 times multiplier, and then 7.5% plus bleed synergy rounds up to a 0.9. And then you get poison plus bleeding DOT, rounding it up to just about a 2 times damage multiplier. Then again, DOT doesn't mean too much, but poison conj, really good. 20 seconds of poison, 5 seconds of bleeding. If you keep proccing it, you do a lot of damage. You be the judge, but I'm saying poison conj is really good. In fact, I would have put it in S, but it is not meta in any way, shape, or form. And the next one, I'm going to elaborate. I think it'd be a below poison. But let's get into the next one. Sand. Sand is pretty recognizable. It has a 1.15 size multiplier, a 0.975 speed multiplier. And then, for the damage, it's 1 base. Yeah. And 1.3 times in total for like the bleeding, the bleed synergy, all that. 1.3. That's why I think sand would be a little bit below poison. Let's go on to the next one. This one is actually pretty nice. Water. 1.2 times multiplier, 1x damage multiplier, has a 1.05 base plus a 5 bleed synergy. So it's like a 1.3 times damage multiplier. Pretty good if you ask me. Water is wet. So am I. What? Fire. Complete opposite. But fire is a lot better in my opinion. Fire is pretty quick. Surprisingly, it doesn't say it's quick, but if you run attack speed, fire is stupid. So it's got a 1.1x speed multiplier, size multiplier, my fault. 1 times damage size multiplier. I'm having like a stroke right now. 1 times speed multiplier, a solid 1 times damage base, and then it rounds out to 1.3. Has 5 seconds of burning. Pretty good. I'd say it's better than water for certain, but I don't know. Alright, next up, we got ice. Now y'all might be wondering, why did I put ice in A tier? Now let me elaborate. Ice is not that good compared to snow, and you'll hear why pretty soon. So, ice got that 1.2 times size and that 0.9 damage multiplier. Speed multiplier, my fault. And it's got a 1.12 times base, so like it just does, it has a 1.1 damage multiplier. It has 5 seconds of bleeding, so it's just about 1.2. And now, let's get into the next one. I'm bumping down acid from S tier, because after further research, I do not think acid, so acid is being demoted. Now, acid has a 1 time speed, 1 time size, and a 0.9 base. It rounds out to only about 1.7. You'd be surprised. So yeah, next up, Shadow. This is the last A tier before we get into S. So let's talk about Shadow. Shadow for Conjurer has a 1.15 size multiplier, a 1.1 times speed multiplier, and it rounds out to about 1.28 times damage multiplier. Pretty good if you ask me. 5 seconds of bleeding, pretty good. It's blind, it's quick, it's surprisingly big. That's what she said. But alright, I will see you all in S tier. Alright, baby, we're finally in S. So let's kick it off with a bright start.
Think fast, Chuckle Nuts.
Light. Light is very fast. People say light is really bad. I say otherwise. I've ran light Conjurer in the updates past the nerfs that people say are like, oh, they're way too major. They're not that bad. Light's got a 1 time size multiplier, 1.4 times speed. It's got a base damage 0.8, but round that up, it's 1. Solid damage multiplier. Pretty good. 5 seconds of bleeding. Alright. I like it. So that's why I think light is an S tier magic. Now let's get on to lightning. Lightning is pretty self-explanatory. It is very quick with a 1.25, literally like 1.5 away from being as fast as light. It's got that 1 time size, It's got a 1 base, then you can add on a 0.9. So like 1.9 damage multiplier, and it has a stun. And then also with the Soak Synergy, it can do way too much damage. And now, let's get on to the top tier Conjurer. Snow, the undisputed champion in my opinion. That shit's got a 1.15 times size multiplier. It's got a 1.05 speed multiplier. It's got a 1x base plus 2.5 from bleeding, rounding up to 1.25. You get the best stun in the game, Freeze, and not to mention the Soak Synergy. So if you soak them, you deal even more damage. Snow is a insane magic, and it has flown under the radar of so many people since release, I feel like. Other than, obviously, Conjurer, like Snow Conjurer got buffed a little bit, but still, Snow for a mage magic and warlock magic was just better ice. And like in Magmar's video, no flack to you, you said it was like wish.com ice. Bro, I do not want to hear that from you. Do not talk bad on my boy ever again. And with this all said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. This video took way too much time to make. I really appreciate you watching. And I will see you guys in my next video that will probably be on a Warlock tier list. Have a wonderful day. Peace out.